Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our final bfoUP webinar of the spring. We're very happy to welcome Sandra Vos this evening to talk about her starting from scratch beef operation, where she began her beef farm with very little knowledge on her background. So we're very happy that she could come and join us for the evening to talk. Just to do a little bit of news and discussion before we get started. If you missed any of our last webinars, don't worry. Our last one with the Unrights, as well as any of the others that happened in the previous month, you can find all of these on our Ontario Beef website at ontariobeef.com under the bfoUP webinars. So feel free to go and find those there. We'll be posting this one up tomorrow, so you'll be able to find this one here as well if you've missed out on anything too. Coming up in July, we're hosting our third annual Beef Youth Development Program. So if you're between 18 to 35, we'd love to have you guys out. We generally have about 20 people that come out. This year, we're having it in Eastern Ontario. So for the past 2 years, we've had it in Central and Southwestern Ontario. So we're taking it to Eastern Ontario this year in Ottawa and Lanark. So it features speakers, some farm tours, as well as working together in groups to make some presentations and assess farm management practices. More information is coming soon. We're just finalizing a few more details. So the registration forms and some information will also be going up on the website and should be there hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. So if you're interested in that, it's first come, first serve for registration. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Dan Ferguson, and we'll be happy to answer any of those questions for you. We've always seemed to have a good turnout and a good time with this, so feel free to reach out and ask us if you want some more information about that. This year, as some of you might know, the Canadian Beef Industry Conference is happening in London, Ontario. So every year at this conference, the Young Cattlemen's Council has their annual general meeting. And so this year, as part of promoting young producers in the industry, BFO is sponsoring having a speaker, Daryl Wade of Farm Life Financial there, talking about succession planning and the importance of those conversations. So we encourage you to not only attend the CBIC, which having been to the past couple of years is an awesome experience in and of itself, but also to take part in the Young Cattlemen's Council AGM and hear the speaker. It's a great opportunity to network and meet other young producers from across the country and learn more of some of their challenges and insights of what they've been doing to be successful in this industry. Where you can learn more about some of these different industry events and news, you can check out BFO's website that I've been talking about here, ontariobeef.com. We have a weekly e-newsletter, the bulletin board, which you can find out how to register for on our website. Members of BFO receive a magazine 5 times a year. And as always in this age, we have social media everywhere. So on Twitter, at Ontario Beef, or if you're in Northern Ontario, at Beef North. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you have any questions about those, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction there. So then I have just another little poll to ask you guys before we get started. So are any of you that are on here tonight potentially interested in a bfoUP Facebook group for young or new producers? I know that there's a lot of Facebook groups out there, so maybe you're being inundated with them and not interested in them. Or do you think it would be a good new way to connect, ask questions about farming ideas, reach out about problems you encountered, gain advice? So do you think it would be worth establishing, and would you actually use it? So I do have a poll here that I'm going to run. Let me just pull it up here. Can launch it. So if you guys could fill that out for me, that would be great. Just give a few more seconds here. Okay. 3, 2, 1. So, looks like kind of 50% useful, 10% unnecessary, 40% indifferent. So maybe, maybe not kind of idea. So we'll maybe do a little more searching around on that one, see if anybody else would be interested, and go from there. But thanks for giving me your opinion on that, guys, and definitely look to you guys for different ideas and ways that we can find to get you guys connected and ways to reach out and network a little bit more. So with that, I'm going to switch it over to Sandra here so she can do what you guys actually are all here to listen to tonight and hear from Sandra. So I'm going to change the presenter here over to Sandra.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I just had a message pop up. You've been made the presenter. Please close confidential windows. Not
Yep.
ready, close it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and well, thank you everyone for attending this evening. I know there's all kinds of things that have to be done, and I appreciate you taking the time to join in tonight. When Bethany asked me to do this, she said that some of the previous participants had wanted to know how to start with nothing, and I'm probably the extreme in some ways. So this is my story of how I got to be where I am, and please feel free to ask any questions. And what I'm going to talk about tonight is just from my perspective. It's probably totally wrong and doesn't fit in the usual way of farming, but it's been an adventure and I've had a kind of a crazy, wonderful time being on it. So I'll begin with a little bit of my farm. My farm is 80 acres and it was in Brant County until 2016, and then I got shoved into the city of Brantford. And eventually they're going to earmark me as employment lands, but with the Greenbelt hovering and no sewage and water capacity, that could be quite a long time for now. So psychologically, it's an adjustment to suddenly find yourself in the city of Brantford versus being in the county.
Sandra, sorry, can I interrupt you for a second? We don't seem to be seeing any of your slides.
Oh, no. So I have to go show my screen.
Is there a little play button that you have to push that says show screen?
How's that? It says show screen is passed.
There we go.
Is it on now?
It's on now.
Okay.
All right. We should be good to
go. All right. So it's 80 acres, clay loam, has a cold water stream running, bisects the whole farm. And I bought it from a cousin who was a non-farming cousin. It belonged to my uncle's years ago, and it was one of the farms that he ran cattle on and did some crop. And when I took it over, it was being rented out, and there was absolutely nothing on it. Not a driveway, not a fence. There was an old barn, and I took that down before it totally fell down. I remembered when I met a few of the neighbors, they were absolutely amazed that the farm had come up for sale and they didn't know about it, which I didn't find interesting until years later. So I just want to have a few slides of what the farm if I can make this darn thing work. So I'm just going to give you a little beginning of how I began to farm. And I thought I would start with what I didn't have so that you know how totally crazy I was to do this. So I had no previous working knowledge of the art and science of farming. I did know how to garden. I gardened at home in town, and I did understand the importance of soil. My background is healthcare and nursing, and I always believe that if you made good soil, you made good food, and you created good health. I grew up in Toronto. My father was worked for CNCP management. I have 3 brothers. And even though we were sent down to help the uncle on the farm, I really didn't have any outdoor farm experience. I didn't know really anything about farming, so I had no skills. I didn't know how to fix-it-yourself mentality that I'm in awe of my neighbors who do that all the time. I had no piece of machinery, let alone how to operate it. I had to save my money in order to buy my used tractor, and before that I rented a kind neighbors, and so having to even learn how to drive a tractor and hook up and all that was part of that steep learning curve. The farm was good in a way because it had no house and there was no question of putting one on. It had no infrastructure though, so I had to begin with doing the basics like a driveway and some fence and some gates. And I had no concept of hydraulics, pressure, plumbing, electrical information. So I was brought up in an age where you cooked and you cleaned and you ironed, but your dad didn't teach you how to change wires and oil and stuff like that. And I had no experience really with cows except very minimally, and for the first 5 years I was probably afraid of cows, and I hope you're all going to get a laugh about that because you've all grown up on beef farms and that's probably second nature to you. And the last thing I didn't have was, although my family was supportive of me doing this out of the blue, because it did come out of the blue, they're really good on very specific projects. But my kids, after 1 year of small square baling, they took off and found jobs at their camps and other places. So it really is by myself, for myself, and muddling along the whole way. But what I did have is I had a willingness to learn and observe and read everything about farming, and I've pretty much kept that up for the last 17 years. I had money from off-farm income to start paying for mostly used equipment to begin with, because as you know, the cost can be horrendous. And as a result of that, I chose very carefully what I was going to do on the farm. I never worried about other people's opinions. The neighbors, they must have had a great laugh for years because I didn't know I was supposed to worry about that. I had confidence in choosing the direction I wanted to go once I decided what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the confidence for all the skills that you have to learn to get to that point, and that did take some while. I also have a love of paperwork, numbers, and saving money, and that comes very easy to me. I don't give that a second thought. And because of the nursing and being in the city, I did understand what consumers wanted, and I got their health concerns, and that's what led me to do the grass-fed beef, one of many reasons. I also didn't have any iron or machinery, mostly because I didn't understand it and I didn't appreciate it. So when I did decide to buy the hay equipment, I focused on learning how to run a small square baler and wagons, but anything to do with serious fix-ups, I have an amazing neighbor that I could take over and pay, and he would do that job for me. And probably the biggest thing is I had neighbors and colleagues who took pity on me, and that got me through some pretty interesting times.